This is For Keeps, a podcast about collections and connections. I'm David Peterkowski. When I was growing up, this was the soundtrack for my Sundays. It's the old theme music for the radio show American Top 40, in which listeners hear the 40 top-selling pop songs of the week countdown style, from number 40 to number 1. Back then, the song rankings came directly from the sales chart in Billboard magazine, arguably the leading publication tracking music sales. But the producers of American Top 40 weren't the only ones mining the Billboard charts for musical data. There was also Joel Whitburn. Since 1970, Joel has run his own company called Record Research, providing radio stations and serious music fans with books and research on pop music's biggest acts, all out of his home base in the Wisconsin town of Menomonee Falls, which, if nothing else, is really fun to say. Joel's not just a researcher, though. He's also the ultimate record collector. His home features an impressive underground vault in which he's got a copy of every single song that's ever made it onto the Billboard Hot 100 music chart. Literally each and every hit single that's charted over the past 60 years since Billboard launched the Hot 100 in 1958. He's got it all, from the iconic to the long forgotten, on vinyl, cassettes, and CDs, all neatly stored and cataloged. Besides that, he's got an enormous album collection, along with even more obscure pop singles that didn't even make it onto the Hot 100 chart. In short, this guy puts your iTunes music library to shame. As a longtime pop music fan, I'd known about Joel's books and research since my teens, and now I've had the chance to talk to the man himself. In our conversation, Joel told me all about how a childhood stop at a bus station newsstand led to his lifelong obsession with pop music, his literally never-ending quest to collect every song that's ever made the charts, and the story of how one elusive song managed to stay out of his archive for decades.
Hello.
Hey, Joel, it's David.
Oh, hi, David.
How are you?
Good.
I guess we can start by going back to the beginning of your passion for collecting music in music sales charts. My understanding is that your obsession with the Billboard music charts began when you were a teenager. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, I'm very young. I was like 12 or 13 when I bought my first Billboard at a bus station when I was with my mother. We had some time, and I went over by the magazines and saw this big, tall magazine Billboard and grabbed it and looked through it and thought, this is really cool. Charts, showing the top hits in the country and big full-page ads of all my favorite artists and reviews of new records. So I remember asking my mom if I could buy that. I think at the time it was a quarter, 20 cents or 25 cents. And she said, sure. I took it home and looked at it, I don't know how many times, and I think at the time her subscription was $12, and I talked her into doing it. So they started coming every Monday. Monday was Billboard Day back then.
And an obsession was born.
Yes, it definitely was. And I collected them all, went off to college, and left the billboards on a big table in a spare room. And I got a call one day from my mother when I was in college. Said, is it okay if we get rid of those billboards now? I had them all stacked up, 1953, 1954, and so on, and left them that way. And they were kind of turning yellow, and she wanted to dump them to make room. And I told her, I almost said yes. And I said, no, hold on to them a little longer. I'd like to save them, thinking that when I get out of college, I might get my own home or get married. I would have a basement, and I could keep them. So we held on to them. And luckily I had them because one day I decided to grab a big stack in 1958 when the Hot 100 chart was introduced, and started doing some research as a hobby at that point. And career was born.
Yeah, and that seems to bring us nicely into your career as a pop music researcher. So just so we're clear, can you describe your company, Record Research, and who your customers are?
Well, now they're music fans all over the world. At the beginning, I was doing it mostly for disc jockeys. In fact, I would send out mailers handwritten to radio stations all across the United States. I had a big book showing all the stations in the country and their wattage and that. And if I saw somebody with high wattage, and look like a bigger station, I would send them a sample page of my book idea and the information, and it was overwhelming, the response. There was nothing like it to refer to. If they had a guest artist on, and he said that his first 4 hits were all number 1 hits, they had to take it as the truth. Now with my books, they can look it up. If they've got an artist like Dwayne Eddy or the Everly Brothers on, they can look it up and know for sure they had, 2 or 3 number 1s. Their first 10 hits were all top 40. They had 46 charted hits or whatever. So radio really jumped on it. And then they would get calls from fans, where are you getting this information? They would like to know for their own use. There were all these huge record collectors across the country, all these records did nationally on the Billboard charts. So then it spread to, record collecting fans, music fans. And now today we get orders from all over the world. Japan is huge, and of course, England and Canada. So they love the Billboard charts.
So early on, you collected the issues of Billboard and the charts in them. At what point did you start collecting every actual hit record that made the charts?
I had a huge record collection because I was a big record collector along with the Billboards. I would make up my list each week of new releases that there were certain artists that were automatic, Elvis Presley and the Everly Brothers, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry. Whatever they released, I would buy when they came out new. But there was always something unusual that would jump into the top 10 on a small label or a local label or something, and then, of course, I would have to get that. So I had a huge collection, but as I was doing my research of everything that made the top 100, obviously I was missing a lot of records. I didn't have every Fats Domino record. I was missing a few that didn't chart real high and so on, and I wanted to get them to verify the B-side, the label number, the exact way the title is shown, and all that information. The songwriter, we got all that information right off the label. So what I really started doing was looking around locally for some of the larger collectors and trying to buy them out, their collections out. It was getting too expensive to go down to the used record shops or wherever, record shops, and buy brand new copies of records from the past. So I decided to look for people that had nice record collections that kept them nice. And, I found some up in Sheboygan and one in Manitowoc and one in Madison. And I would buy them out, usually big collections. And then I would take everything that charted, take everything I needed out, and then I would sell what was left. And the collectors would come to my house and buy like crazy because I would only charge like 25 cents a record. And you can have anything you want. And there were records in there that were very valuable. A lot of rare R&B stuff in that. If I was smart, I could have had a second business selling all those rare records that I had bought. But I didn't care. I wanted the research information. I wanted to fill in. Then I had to go out east to some of the big record shops like Val Shively and The Attic and some other ones that were huge. And I would take my want list with me, and then I would fill in, and they would give me a good deal. Because I would end up buying 1,000 records or something, like 1,200 records at a crack, and they'd have to pack them up and mail them to me. I had to fill in everything. I had to collect everything once I got going. I couldn't be missing one record because it might not be correct information. I wanted everything verified, that it did exist, and that we had the title and artist right and all that. Then as it got down to where I had every record that charted, up to that point, then I would start making a little want list and sending them out around the country to record dealers from coast to coast. And then they would send back with a little check mark what they had and what the cost was. And they would collect those and order those. Then it got down to a top 100 list, a top 40 list, a top 10 list. And finally I got the last one that charted. And then I kept up with it every week from that point on.
And are you still keeping up?
Yes. In fact, I just got the CD of the records that the songs that are coming on next week. There's 22 of them.
It makes it easy when it's all on a CD versus all these individual records, I imagine.
Yeah, well, today they don't make records anymore. You can't find actual 45s or cassettes or CDs. You can find CD albums, but everything is streaming now. So we'll go to Apple, whatever, and make up a list of everything coming on next week. And then I buy those. Most of them are $1.29. Sometimes, like this week, there's an artist a rap duo, actually. They had about 8 came on this week. And you can buy the whole album for like $9 and get all those songs at one crack. And that's what's been happening lately, especially rap. When they come out with a new album, sometimes almost every cut will come on the chart because the kids love that stuff, and they're streaming the records, playing them, and downloading them like crazy.
So for you, it's not necessarily that you're a fan of all these songs. It's more a business transaction?
Right. For some of those, although I do play every one of these songs, there's, like I said, there is, 22 next week that I've got to download into my archive. And then I listen to every one. I put little stars, 3 stars if I like it, 4 stars if it's great, and a 5-star rating if it could be one of the top 10 favorite songs of the year. And there are a lot of songs on the charts that I really like right now today that I do have a few 5 stars and a few that are 4 stars. But as far as rap, there's not too much rap I like because obviously it's just talking, there's no melody usually much. But there's still some rock groups out there and some good pop music out there and some interesting stuff, some good country music that crosses over to pop. Well, I still enjoy it. I love it. I love listening to every song that comes on because you never know what's going to catch your ear. Every week of the year, there's going to be a new stuff to listen to all year long. And who knows what's coming up in June or July this year. It could be one of my favorite records of all time. You never know.
Sounds like an expensive habit.
It is. But, the more research I did, the better my books got, the more orders we sold. I mean, right now we've got a new album book coming out, and the orders are just pouring in over the holidays. Unbelievable. We're having some of our best days ever in sales. And it's also, we sent out a Christmas mailer. It's also selling our top pop book, our country, our R&B book, our pop memories from the 1900s is selling like crazy. So it's really doing good. And we just can't keep up with the demand, actually, because people want all these updated every year or two. And it's hard to keep up with it, especially the main genres, country, R&B, rock, and pop.
It's never ending.
It never ends. The chart is a race that never ends, and that's what's fun.
I'm wondering how many songs are we talking about? Is that a question that's even possible to answer?
As far as what?
How many songs you have in your collection?
Oh, I don't know. It just keeps adding on every week. I can't keep up with it. I have every album that also ever charted from 1945 on. If you add all the songs, it's way over 1 million. If you add up individual records, because, sometimes there's 10, 12 songs on an album, it's probably 300, 400,000 records. They're all in a big vault that I built. Huge racks. And they're all sorted. I can find anything in just minutes.
Have you digitized the collection?
Yeah, I've digitized all the singles from 1920 through today. Everything is digitized. Maybe 30, 40%. I had to do the conversion myself, play the whole record and convert it because there was no digital copy of a lot of these songs from the 40s, 50s, 60s don't exist. They're not on a CD collection by an artist or whatever. But I have the record, so I had to convert it.
That must be some vault.
It is. I had some guests last Friday came and were just astounded. They wrote back and said it's a national treasure. They were astounded. They couldn't believe it was as big as they had heard.
Yeah, you need to back all that up digitally.
Well, if I do the albums digitally, it's going to take decades.
I'm wondering, have you ever had any trouble tracking down particularly obscure tunes? And if so, do you recall which ones they were or any particular stories?
Yeah, there was one that bubbled under DA. It was called Ready and Steady, 1970, I think, or 70 something, and it bubbled under. And I also have every bubbling under record, which is like 101 to 125 today. So we collect all those also. That started in 1959. Very rare, hard to find because they only pressed a few because they weren't big hits. But I have collected all those, and I was missing one. It was by a group called DA, Ready and Steady. And for about 20 years, I put out the Willards, Alfred $500, and everybody that had huge collections and went to every record shop. Everybody looked for it. Nobody found it. But I finally got in touch with a guy from that band and found out the whole story. It's a real long story. It never was issued as a 45. It's just a long story. But I have the actual record now ready and steady on tape. And I think for Vinyl Day, I think I'm going to press a 45, make up, 1,000 of them and sell them. Everybody wants that record because if they know that's the one record in my book that I'm missing and everybody's missing. But that's been solved. We have at least the music, but I still don't have an actual physical record.
I have a feeling that once you press it to vinyl, it's going to actually do better than the Bubbling Under chart and actually get into the Hot 100 proper.
I don't know what's going to happen with that. I mean, everybody that has my book, they all know the story. And they've all seen the rewards and everything. It was an amazing journey. But the whole story will come out about what happened, who the members were, and what happened with the song. It's a long, long story. I can't tell you now.
Peola may have something to do with it.
It did. There was something going on with a salesman out there, a record salesman. There was some kind of a bet they had going, and got very complicated. But it popped on the Bubbling Under chart for 2 weeks, and there was something funny going on. I really plan on issuing a 45 of it. It's really a good, kind of a hard rock song. I like it. But I've got the only copy. He had it on a reel-to-reel, and he spun off a little cassette for me and sent it to me. But it's not the record. I need to have a physical record to pop in the spot where that's missing. It's like you make a puzzle, and you're missing a little tiny piece in a corner someplace. It bothers the heck out of you. You spend days looking for that piece on the floor or wherever. Well, we spent decades looking, and so did all my customers.
So now you get to make your own last puzzle piece.
Yeah, that's what I like to do. And I've gotten the okay to do it, so why not?
So for a lot of people my age, their introduction to Billboard's music charts was the American Top 40 radio program, which was hosted by Kasem, legendary DJ throughout the 70s and 80s. And I know that one of your books featured a foreword written by him. Did you have much interaction with him over the years?
We signed together. We met in L.A. Al Cook was the publisher of Billboard, and his head office was in L.A. at the time. Now they're in New York. But he invited my wife and I out to L.A. and Kasem, and they gave him the license to broadcast their charts, and they gave me the license to publish new books on their charts, to mine their, M-I-N-E, to mine their charts. So we started the same week, the same day probably, when we signed these license agreements together. But, yeah, we signed and we became good friends. When I did my first Billboard book of Top 40 hits, he did an introduction for me in the book. And he always wanted to do something with me in my book publication, but I didn't want him because he had his own career and I had my career was going great. So why should I, Dick Clark Enterprises also wanted to know what they could do with hooking up with me because they could see this thing was taking off like a rocket. And we were starting to publish books from all these different genres, and the demand was unbelievable. People just couldn't believe that we had this information available because it was nowhere. Of course, the internet didn't exist. There was nothing to look up.
A different time.
Yeah. Oh, it was so much fun. Going to the record shops. I used to, on Saturdays, make the rounds to there's about 4 record shops that I really liked in Milwaukee. And I would make the rounds every Saturday. I had to go to all of them because sometimes they would have, some other record or something else that I needed. The displays were different. I might find a picture sleeve. You know what a picture sleeve is? The records go in the 45 into a sleeve that has a custom picture, color, a photo of the artist or something.
Right.
Some just have generic, RCA sleeves, but I collected picture sleeves also. I have the largest collection in the world of picture sleeves.
One thing that is going on today is that you can find a lot of the hits from the past on YouTube. Does the existence of YouTube take any of the fun of music collecting away from you?
No. In fact, right now I'm working on regional hits, little top 10 charts from radio stations, thousands of radio stations all across the country from smaller towns. Their little charts. I'm going through there and I'm finding little songs that were local hits and that didn't make the national charts, and I'm buying those and looking for them. And sometimes I'll find one or two that are new on YouTube, but generally a lot of these don't exist on YouTube because they're too rare. They were like in a small town in Texas or something. The artist was from there and it was a local hit. That was a top 10 song, but it never broke any further than there. So you won't find it any place. But in fact, that's a project I'm working on right now. I'm trying to finish up 55, 56, 57, 58, and 59 to go through all these. But it takes a long time because you got to look at, there's about 60 top 10 regional charts each week that were published. And I have to look at every one of those top 10s looking for a song that sticks out that didn't make the national charts. And usually each week there's about 12 to 14 from those 21 top 10 charts.
Gotcha. How would you describe your own taste in music? And have your tastes evolved over the years as pop music has changed?
It's everything, pretty much everything. My favorite era was the 50s and 60s. I love the 60s and the late 50s. Love it, love it, love it. I have great songs from the 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way through. Chasing Cars was a big hit, 2005, and that's one of my all-time favorite hits. That's kind of recent. The artist Pink, I love her music. I got all her stuff. Great songs. And on and on and on and on. Thousands and thousands of artists that I love.
And you're giving hip-hop a try.
Oh, I do. Ever since it started, I've been playing them and collecting them and putting them in my archive. Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? Their albums go number one. Their singles come on. Well, they have to be entered into my archive and into my database.
It's the will of the people.
Yeah. I have no idea that there's been such a resurgence the last 2 years in hip-hop. It started to kind of fade away, and pop music was making more inroads than rock, but now it's gone the other way, and hip-hop is just huge right now. I'm not crazy about it, but in between there's a lot of other good pop music and rock songs that are on the charts. So there's enough stuff that I like. But, I think back to the, say, a 1960 chart. Every song on that chart I loved, I collected. And every song was, for me, is a classic. Yeah, it'll never be that way again, probably. And when I pull up my chart book from the 60s or start paging through it, just my heart just sinks like, oh, we didn't know how good we had it. We didn't know the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and the Beach Boys. I mean, the charts were just loaded with great stuff, top to bottom.
And you've got it all?
Got it all. I have it all.
One last question for you, and it's a trivia question.
Trivia question?
Well, you're a researcher, a pop music researcher. I'm curious if you'll know the answer to this. And if you don't, it's fine. Maybe you can work it into your next book. Okay. Can you name the hit-making band whose drummer hails from Menominee Falls?
Fall Out Boy.
Correct.
How's that? He and I are both in the Menominee Falls Hall of Fame. We're side by side. Our plaques are on the wall.
Well, no wonder you know.
How was that for answering your trivia question?
I am very impressed.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Very nice. We both got inducted to the Arts Hall of Fame at our high school, and they put a nice big plaque. They had a big dinner for us at a country club, and it was awesome. They had a big orchestra playing, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, he's a good guy. Bought his mother a big home in Fox Point, and still not married. Got tattoos all over the place, but he's really a nice kid.
And he hasn't forgotten his roots.
No, he's just like my next door neighbor. I mean, we're friends, and he's a cool guy. Just like the drummer for Red Hot Chili Peppers has been to my place, Chad Smith.
Sounds like you're hanging out with a lot of drummers.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
I hear they're the most fun anyway, so you're doing that right, too.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, Joel, well, that's everything I've got.
Okay, well, I hope I answered everything.
You sure did.
Good.
I need to make a trip to Menominee Falls myself and check out the vault.
Yeah, you would, if you like music or records, you would be astounded when you walk in and see the immensity of it.
I do. I'm a Billboard chart watcher from way back, so...
Oh, great.
It would be pretty great to see this place.
Yeah, well, give me a call when you're in the area.
I will do that.
Okay.
Okay, well, thanks again, Joel. Take care.
Yeah, nice talking to you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
As they say in the radio business, the hits just keep on coming. You've really got to admire Joel Whitburn's commitment to record collecting. And what music fan wouldn't want to kick back with him in his musical man cave, surrounded by literally every hit single of the rock era, and debate the merits of Fall Out Boy? If someone ever compiles a ranking of pop music collectors, Joel Whitburn would clearly be number one. For Keeps is a production of me, David Peterkovsky. Thanks to Joel Whitburn for talking with me about his unreal collection of pop music. And I have to give a special shout out to Paul Haney, an employee of Joel's, for tracking down the song Ready and Steady, and to Ron Boogie Monster Gerber, host of the radio show Crap from the Past on KFAI in Minneapolis, for being the first to air the song once Paul unearthed it. Well played, guys. The show's opening theme is by the band Still Flyin, and the closing theme is by Eric Frisch. As always, you can follow For Keeps on Instagram and Twitter at For Keeps Podcast. That's it for this episode of For Keeps. Until next time, keep on keeping on.